So today we will be looking into the losses and efficiency in DC motor. Yeah. So the efficiency of any machine is very important so that which will give us the economy of operation of that machine. Okay. How best that machine operates with what amount of economy. Okay. Economy in the sense it can be a power economy. Okay. Here in the sense economy means power economy. Okay. So how economic the machine operation is can be obtained from the value of efficiency. Higher the value of efficiency, more is the economic operation. It means whatever I am investing uh, in the form of input power, majority of that input power is available at the output to do the useful work. It is not all the time that efficiency of the machine will be very high. Okay, so in the previous course, in the last semester course, you studied transformers, where you observed that the efficiency of that transformer is above 95%, almost in every case, practically. Okay. Because of no rotating parts or moving parts in the transformer, the amount of losses present in the transformer are very less. Therefore, efficiency obtained is very high. Okay. We are talking about efficiency of the active power. If you see the total power, it will always be constant in primary and secondary. Okay. V1 I1 is equal to V2 I2, which is the total power. But when we talk about efficiency of any machine, it is the useful power, that is active power, the power in wattage. So power output in watts divided by power input in watts gives us the efficiency of any machine. Okay. So even in DC machine, we have to calculate efficiency as a motor or as a generator because that information is necessary to know the operation of the machine. Along with efficiency, I will be also knowing the losses. Okay. So different types of losses that are present in the machine. Okay. How those different types of losses are obtained. Okay. How those can be calculated. And what is the use of those loss? Okay. No doubt there are various ways to find out the losses of the machine. But why we should find out? Why we should know the losses? If I know efficiency, that is fine. But the losses are the main reason why the temperature rise in the machine occurs. Okay. So temperature is one such quantity in any machine that has to be always monitored and kept well within the limits. The operating temperature of any machine should never go beyond its maximum value. If it does happen, then I will be losing the insulation. The entire worry that I do of machine is about insulation, because insulation is one such a link, okay, which is uh, helping the proper operation of the machine, and also it is one such link which is the weakest part in the machine. So as much important the insulation is in the machine, so much the weak link it forms. The insulation will isolate the two conducting parts, that we know, that it will avoid the conduction of current in the non-desirable parts of the machine. So I expect conduction of current to be happening in only winding. I don't expect conduction should happen in the iron parts. So there is an insulation provided between winding and iron parts. If that insulation breaks down, if that insulation stops operating, if that insulation puncture occurs, then current starts flowing in the iron parts, which is a electrical breakdown of the machine. It will create a big short circuit, a dead short circuit. Then the energy conversion will be stopped and we will lose the machine maybe forever. So insulation forms a very important part, and also which is the weakest part of any electrical machine, however small or large it may be. So the health of the insulator is always depending upon the operating temperature of the machine. If operating temperature is kept well within the limit, then health of the insulation can be maintained in a good condition. Then how to study the operating temperature? To know the operating temperature of the machine, I should be knowing what are the reasons due to which the temperature rise in the machine occurs. Okay, one reason for temperature rise is ambient temperature. In whichever physical condition the machine is installed for operation, the ambient temperature is the deciding factor. One thing, if the ambient temperature itself is very high, suppose the machine is operating in a hotter part of the geography, then automatically the surrounding temperature is high. The operating temperature is basically it will be large. In such case, if the machine incurs large amount of losses, along with ambient temperature, temperature rise due to losses will also increase. So this large temperature rise in the machine demand stronger insulation circuit. So before I use a type of insulator in a particular motor or a generator or a transformer, I should be knowing where the machine is going to operate once it is installed. So that the ambient temperature, average ambient temperature is known, and the temperature rise of the machine beyond ambient temperature can be calculated at the time of design. Okay, how it can be calculated? Through design, I can design the losses also. So these losses calculation becomes very important for me, not only to calculate the efficiency, but also to know the temperature rise of the machine. Okay, so temperature is a big villain in the machine operation. It is a very big villain, which cannot be avoided. I can't avoid temperature. Temperature rise in the machine. Temperature rise occur because losses occur, and I can't avoid losses. Okay, why losses occur? Losses occur because of the physical limitation of the materials that I use. It is expected that winding should have zero resistance, but we know that we don't get any practical conductor which has got zero resistance. So when I use any conductor as wire or winding in any machine, it is bound to offer some amount of resistance for the flow of current, and hence there will be the copper losses occurring in the winding. Similarly, whatever the iron parts I use, silicon steel or cast iron or any kind of mild steel or hard steel, all these steels are bound to have hysteresis and eddy current losses because of the magnetic cycles, magnetizing and demagnetizing cycles. So it is bound to occur iron losses in the iron part of the machine because of which temperature rise in the iron part occurs. Third, because the machine is rotating in nature, there is a physical friction between the bearings, inner ray and outer rays of the bearing. There is physical friction in the air gap. Therefore, the mechanical losses are bound to occur. So however best I design the machine, however best materials I use, the losses are bound to occur in any machine. So these losses will create a temperature rise in the machine. So loss is a heat. When I say loss, power loss, it is a heat loss. Okay, a part of input power lost or dissipated in the form of heat, we call it as loss. So that power is not doing any work. That power is not doing any work. Hence, it is called as loss. And I can't avoid it. Because of the limitation of the materials, these losses are bound to occur. Okay, it is like when I eat food, every part of the food what I eat will not be converted into the output energy that I can use for doing certain work. Some amount of input, some amount of energy that I gained from my food is utilized by the body itself to make itself alive. So that part of the power is not doing any work, but that part of power is necessary, or that part of energy is necessary to keep my organs operating. Okay, so not all the food what I eat is now converted to muscular energy. So some amount of power is utilized by my body so that my body parts are properly working. Likewise, the same thing happen in machines. Not all the part of the input power that is used, that is given, is converted to output. Some amount of input power is utilized by the machine itself
Excuse me, sir.
operating. Yes?
Sir, writing slide is not visible, sir.
No, no, I haven't gone it. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So this is the concept of losses. Okay. So whether we wish or we don't wish, losses are bound to occur in the machine because machine takes some amount of power that is given to it from the input because it has to overcome its limitations. Now, until and unless the resistance is overcome, current will not exist in the circuit. So to overcome the resistance, some amount of power is utilized by the conductor so that the maintenance of current occurs in the circuit continuously. So that minimum power that is utilized to overcome the resistance is copper loss. Similarly, in the iron parts, to overcome the hysteresis effect and eddy currents, some amount of power is utilized by the iron part that we call it as iron loss. Because of mechanical friction occurring in the physical moving parts, some amount of input power is utilized to overcome that friction. Beyond that friction, the output has to be given out. So that amount of power that is utilized to overcome friction is called mechanical loss. So these are the concept, this is the concept of losses, and this exists in every machine, whether it is a motor or a generator, a DC motor or a DC generator, AC motor or a AC generator, even in transformers. In transformers, we don't get frictional loss, only iron and copper losses we get. So this is a brief introduction to losses. Okay. So what are the different types of losses we get in the rotating machine? Are of three types because of limitations of the materials. Okay. Losses occur losses occur due to limitations of materials. Due to limitations of materials. Now suppose there is no limitation in material, like suppose in wire there is no resistance, copper losses will not occur. If the resistance of the wire is 0, I square R becomes 0. So power consumed by the conductor to maintain the current is 0. So all the losses in every machine occurs because of the limitations of materials. And because machine is made up of physical materials, physical limitations are bound to exist, which will create losses to exist. So in every machine, there will be losses. Okay. So first limitation is due to resistance in conducting or due to resistance in winding conductor. Okay. Copper losses occur. Copper losses, that is I square R. Copper losses occur. Okay. Then due to hysteresis, and circulating currents, I will tell in detail. Okay. How these occur. Due to hysteresis and circulating currents in core, iron losses occur. Due to friction between uh, rotating and stationary parts, mechanical losses occur. Okay, so these are the three types of losses that occur in any rotating machine. So as a result of losses, what will happen? Temperature rise occurs. Okay, so because of losses, or before that, because of losses, not all input is available at output to do useful work. To do useful work. So this power that is lost in the form of losses is dissipated in the form of heat. Okay. So these losses, I can say, these losses consume some amount of input power Okay. So what they will do, how they will consume? Okay. They will consume in the form of heat. Okay, and dissipate in the form of heat. Okay, so losses means heat. Okay, power loss means heat dissipation. So all the losses will form heat only. Okay, the energy is lost in the sense it is lost in the form of heat. Okay, so because of this, temperature rise in the machine occurs. Therefore, temperature rise of machine occurs. Okay, so the temperature rise in any machine is because of two reasons. One is because of ambient temperature. If the surrounding temperature itself is large, then operating temperature automatically will be more. Plus, because of losses present in the machine, the temperature rise of the machine is also increasing. So as a result of this, what will happen? Efficiency of the machine decreases. Okay, so therefore, because of losses, output to do useful work decreases. Output to do useful work decreases. Therefore, efficiency. Now, what is output then? Therefore, output is equals to, I can write input minus losses. Output is input minus losses. Therefore, efficiency which is output by input, reduces due to losses. Okay, if more the amount of losses present in the machine, less will be the output available at the endpoint. Therefore, the efficiency of the machine or system reduces. Okay. So there are three types of losses we have in a DC motor. In a DC motor, let this be a motor. Not only in DC motor, in all the motors, these are the three types. So I am giving some input. I am getting some output. Okay. So input is electrical, output is mechanical. So out of some part of input, the machine will incur some losses. So what are these losses? There are three types of losses. One is copper loss. Second is iron loss. Third is mechanical loss. So in any rotating machine, these three losses are bound to occur. So what are these losses? Copper losses we know, many a times we have studied. Copper losses, these are nothing but my due to resistance in the conducting path or winding. Okay, due to resistance in winding. Which is I square R loss. Then what are iron losses? Okay, so there are two types of iron losses. So one is hysteresis loss. Second is eddy current loss. What is hysteresis loss? Why hysteresis occur? Briefly, I will tell what is hysteresis loss, because in the initial class I told that when we come to the losses, I will tell how exactly hysteresis loss and eddy current loss occur. I think we did not discuss in the basic classes, right, about losses?
Yes.
In detail, we did not discuss there. Or did we do that? I think no.
No, sir.
No, okay. So we'll look into what are hysteresis loss. So before going into what are hysteresis loss, first we should know what are the concepts that we use in ferromagnetic substances. So whatever the materials that are used for core building of core, silicon steel, whether it is a CRGO silicon steel or it is a hot rolled silicon steel, whether it is a hard steel, okay, we use ferromagnetic substance. And ferromagnetic substance is understood using molecular magnetic theory. Have you come across molecular magnetic theory in physics? That any magnetic material is composed of infinite number of molecular magnets or micromagnets. Do you remember this point that you studied in your +1 or +2 physics? So if you take a magnetic material, suppose I have a magnetic material which is now magnetically neutral. I haven't applied any magnetic field to it. Magnetic neutral material in the sense, when we were kids, we all have played with magnets. Okay, so when you attached the small iron pins to the magnet for a long duration, for a minute or two, then when you took out that iron pin and you touched that iron pin with other iron pins, then that first iron pin started acting like magnet. Yes? Did we all do this? We have done this. So longer the string of pins, he is the winner of the game, like that. When we were kids, we used to play. Why that pin started acting as magnet? Now there was a magnet which is naturally a magnet, has got magnetic properties. It will attract, that is fine. But that iron pin was not a magnet. But when that iron pin was kept in contact with the magnet for a long time, that iron pin also started operating as magnet. Because that iron pin has got the ability to magnetize, and hence that also became a magnet. If you take a wooden pin, it would have not happened so, right? Only with iron pins it would happen. If I take non-magnetic pins or non-magnetic substances, they will not get magnetized. So what do you mean by magnetization? A magnetic material, okay, magnetization means what? Magnetizing a magnetic material. I cannot magnetize non-magnetic material. Okay, so magnetization means what? Magnetizing non-magnetic material. Now what is magnetizing, or what is magnet? Magnet is anything that has got a attractive and directive property. That is the fundamental definition of any magnet, whether natural or electromagnet. A magnet is one which has got attractive and directive properties. Okay, so all the materials those will exhibit this property are called magnetic materials. All the materials those can exhibit this magnetic properties are called magnetic materials. So these magnetic materials may not be magnet always, but when they are magnetized, they act as magnet. When they are magnetized, they act as magnet. Okay, so I will take such a material. Are you getting the things?
Yes.
Okay, I will take such one material which is having capacity to magnetize. So I will take a magnetic material. Okay, I will take a magnetic material. So this magnetic material, now I haven't magnetized it. I will keep it magnetically neutral. I will not take this magnetic material in any of the magnetic fields. So what molecular magnetic theory says that this magnetic material has got a large number of molecular magnets, okay, or micromagnets. This is also known as micromagnetic theory. This magnet has got large number of molecular magnetic dipoles. We know that a magnet is a dipole. Okay, dipole in the sense two poles, north and south. Okay, so this magnet is having infinite number of magnetic dipoles. Okay, so these all are small micromagnets. Okay, now when you observe the orientation, arrow mark indicates orientation. When you observe the orientation of this magnetic material or molecular magnets, it is completely random. Okay, So these are what? Molecular magnetic dipoles. Okay, these are molecular magnetic dipoles randomly oriented. Randomly oriented. Now, each molecular magnet is randomly oriented. What is the net orientation on the material? Resultant orientation of the material is yes,
0.
0, right? The resultant orientation or the net orientation of the dipole is 0. So when a magnetic material is not oriented, can I call it as a magnet? I can't call it as magnet, right? A magnet is one which has got a directive property. Now there is no directive property in this because the molecular magnets are randomly directed or oriented. So the net direction is 0. The net orientation is 0. This material is now magnetically neutral. Okay, so this is now magnetically neutral. Now I want to magnetize this because I know until and unless I magnetize the core, energy conversion will not happen in either motor or generator, right? So I have to magnetize this. How do I magnetize this? I will make this material experience a magnetic field. It means that I will create a magnetic field surrounding this. Please remember one thing. What we are doing in every machine is a current is made to flow in the field winding to create a flux, not surrounding the coil, to create a flux in the core. Getting my point? Magnetic circuit study is a very beautiful study in electrical science, and it is very important study. Once you understand the magnetic circuit behavior, no concept in the machines remains difficult. Everything will come like in the plate of a platter. Directly it will come to your thinking, directly it will come to your understanding. But understanding magnetic circuit behavior is very important, which is also very important for your machine design study in the next semester. Okay, the entire machine design is depending upon magnetic circuit calculations. So what happens now is, whenever I am creating a magnetic field, my intention is not to create a magnetic field surrounding the coil. My intention is to create a magnetic field inside the core, because core is a magnetic material which will create more magnetic field than in air. That is the reason why I use core. Never I use air core coil. We always use iron core coils. Why iron core? Because iron is a better material to create more magnetic field. So what I will do now is I will magnetize this material. I will magnetize this material by subjecting it to in the magnetic field. What happens then? Okay. Now what I will do? Let us subject the material to magnetic field. Now how I can do that? I can wind a coil surrounding this material and I will pass the current. Okay, let me do that. It may take some few extra minutes, but it will clear your hysteresis concept forever. Okay, so even if it takes some more time, be patient and be curious. Now This is my material. I will wind this material with coils. Why I am taking coil? Because I want to tell you about hysteresis. It is not only about magnetizing. Okay. So because we are dealing with electromagnets all the time in machines, so I will take electromagnet. Okay. Now what I will do, I will pass current. Let this be I. The current. Let the terminal be A and terminal be B. Now current is made to enter through terminal A and exit through terminal B. Okay. Now as a result of this, what happens? This winding or coil will create its magnetic field. Yes or no? Whenever a current is carried by a conductor, it will create a magnetic field. That we know already. Now, as a result of the magnetic field created by the coil, these molecular magnets inside the material start getting oriented in a particular direction. Now, all the molecular magnets, they will orient in one direction. Okay. Now, when the material was not magnetized, the net orientation was 0. Now, when I magnetized the material, there is a proper orientation of all the molecular magnets. Okay. Now, as a result of this, what will happen? The flux lines will exist. So, what are these flux lines? When we draw the flux lines, we show arrow mark, right? So, this is the direction of flux line. So, this forms north pole and this forms south pole. This is how an electromagnet or a core is magnetized. Is it clear up to this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So what we have seen, there are infinite number of molecular magnets in a ferromagnetic substance. When they are not magnetized or when the material is magnetically neutral, the net magnetization of the core is 0. The net orientation is 0, therefore magnetization 0. So when I magnetize the material, that when I keep the material in one other magnetic field, either I do it electromagnetically or I take another natural magnet and keep near to that material. Okay. Please excuse me for the background noise. I am helpless because of kids. This is bound to happen. So you kindly excuse me for that. Okay. Now, as a result of magnetization, all the molecular magnets will orient in one particular direction. Then the magnetic core now acquires the property of attraction and direction. Now that core became magnetic. This is what happens. But when a magnetic material is subjected to the cycles of magnetization and demagnetization, we know that whether it is a DC machine or a AC machine, the current carried in the conductor is alternating. Okay. In the principle of operation, we have seen that the current carried in the armature winding is AC, alternating current. Okay. So what happens after every half cycle is the direction of current changes. Now, when the direction of current changes, what should be the direction of these molecular magnets? When the current is entering terminal A and current is exiting terminal B, the orientation of molecular magnets is towards left. Now, if the direction of current was from B to A, what would have been the orientation of the molecular magnets? That would have been towards right, right? That is how. If I want to change the polarity of an electromagnet, what do? I change the direction of current, right? Okay. So when I change the direction of current, the orientation of these molecular magnets will reverse. And if the current is alternating, after every half cycle, the direction of these molecular magnets will reverse. This is known as cycles of magnetization and demagnetization. But what happens practically is not all the molecular magnets will deorient when the direction of current is changed. Okay, not all the molecular magnets will deorient when the direction of current is changed, or some molecular magnets will take very long time to deorient when the direction of current is changed. This is the property called as irreversibility, which we come across even in chemistry. Irreversible chemical reactions. Did you observe? Did you hear this?
Yes, sir.
And this property of irreversibility is known as hysteresis. Hysteresis is what? It is the property of irreversibility. Irreversibility of what? Irreversibility of orientation and deorientation of molecular magnets. Okay, so what is hysteresis? It is the property due to which the molecular magnets refuse to deorient when the direction of magnetization, magnetizing force here is the current, here is the current. When the direction of magnetizing force is reversed. So as a result of that, what will happen? As a result of this, what will happen is the magnetic material tried to draw more magnetizing force to deorient. And that extra magnetizing force is the loss called hysteresis loss. Okay, that extra magnetizing force drawn by the material to deorient and reorient after every half cycle, after every cycle of magnetization and demagnetization, will contribute for hysteresis loss. Okay. So the best example what I can give in understanding hysteresis loss is, say, or before that, let us see a BH curve. It will be more understanding to you. Now, all of us, we know BH curve. Okay. H is magnetizing force, B is magnetic flux density. Okay. H is magnetizing force and B is magnetic flux density. So as I increase the magnetizing force, the magnetic flux density increase. That is, when I increase the magnetizing current, magnetic field increases. You just understand this point. Now, initially, when the magnetizing force is zero, that is when magnetic material is magnetically neutral, all the molecular magnets are there to orient in one direction. So when I start increasing the magnetizing force, that is when I start increasing this current, initially all the magnetic poles, dipoles, molecular magnets try to orient. So the magnetic field produced, or the magnetization occurring initially is linearly increasing with respect to magnetizing force. Because no molecular magnet is oriented, the moment I give the current, most of the molecular magnet starts getting oriented. So initially, the magnetization is linearly increasing with current. But after a while, majority of the molecular magnets are oriented. Minority of the molecular magnets are still to be oriented. So the variation of magnetic field will not be linear, it will start flattening. So it will start flattening. Okay. So up to certain point it is linear. After certain point it starts flattening. Then when I further increase the magnetizing force, when I further increase this current, majority of the molecular magnets have oriented. Very few are not oriented. Further the magnetic field try to remain constant. Now once all the magnetic poles or molecular magnets have oriented, all infinite values, even when I further increase the magnetization, okay, even when I further increase the magnetizing force, there are no molecular magnets which are further to be oriented, and my magnetic flux density will remain constant. Even if you increase the current to infinite value, magnetic flux density will remain constant. So this point after which the magnetic flux density remains constant is called saturation point. This is called magnetic saturation. Never ever magnetic material should reach this magnetic saturation point. Once magnetic saturation occurs in the machine, energy conversion stops. Energy conversion stops. Now, what I have done, I have increased the magnetizing force from 0 to some value. Let us take only up to saturation. I will not increase beyond saturation. Suppose I have increased the magnetizing force in some steps. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So I increased the magnetizing force in 7 steps up to saturation. This is the magnetizing curve. This is called magnetizing curve because I am making the non-magnetically neutral material to a magnet. So this is called magnetizing curve. Now once I increase up to saturation, decrease the magnetization in the same number of steps. I increase it from 0 to 1 unit, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 5 to 6, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7 with certain rate. With the same rate, you decrease from 7 to 0. Then what will happen is, when I start decreasing the magnetizing force, the demagnetization will not follow the same curve. The demagnetization will not follow the same curve. It will follow some other curve, different curve or different path. So what does this mean? There is a gap. Why this occurs? That once the molecular magnets orient in one direction, they refuse to deorient in opposite direction because of hysteresis property. They don't want to reverse. They don't want to get reversed. So as a result of that, what will happen? Even though I am demagnetizing the material, there is some amount of magnetization still present. Even when I made magnetizing force 0, some amount of magnetization is still present, which is called, what is this called? Yes. Let this be a curve OA. Let this be OB. What is this called, curve OB? It is residual magnetism. Have you heard this term? Have you heard this term, residual magnetism? Am I audible?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
So this residual magnetism, what? You studied residual magnetism in DC, separately excited DC generator characteristics last time. Residual magnetism is what? The amount of magnetism present in the magnetic material even when the magnetizing force is 0, or even when the magnetizing current is made 0. Okay? And this residual magnetism is depending upon the retentivity property of the magnetic material. More the retentivity property, more is the residual magnetism. But for a best magnetic material in machines, my retentivity should be minimum. I don't expect a residual magnetism to exist. Okay. So now what I have done, I have increased the current from 0 to maximum, and current is decreased from maximum to 0. This naturally occurs in half cycle, is it? In a sinusoidal waveform, a current is increasing from 0 to Im and it is decreasing from Im to 0. In one half cycle, this is the curve obtained. When current was increasing from 0 to maximum up to 90 degrees, the magnetic flux density increased to some value. And when current started decreasing from from maximum to 0 in the next 90 degrees, the demagnetizing curve is not following the magnetizing curve. Now, what happens at 180 degrees? After 180 degrees, current starts increasing in opposite direction. Now, if I want to make this magnetization 0, then I should increase the current in opposite direction. It will take some more current to make the magnetizing force 0. So somewhere here, the magnetizing force, the magnetic flux density becomes 0. Now beyond this, current is again increasing. The magnetic flux density increases in opposite direction. Okay. So let this be point C, let this be point D. Now when the current has reached a negative maximum, I get some amount of flux density. After negative maximum, now current is again decreasing to 0. So magnetic flux density again it will come to 0. It will not become 0 because of retentivity. Okay. So when in the next half cycle, when current increases positively, magnetic field will become 0 somewhere here. Again, it will increase. So this is called hysteresis loop. Did you come across this curve?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So this is a BH curve of a ferromagnetic substance. And the area of this curve is hysteresis loss. Area of curve is hysteresis loss. This is for one cycle. We have such 50 cycles in 1 second. Whatever I have drawn, it is for one cycle of hysteresis loop. How many cycles I have in 1 second in an AC? I have 50 such cycles. So this loop will occur 50 times in 1 second. So every time this loop occurs, hysteresis loss occurs. Now, can I avoid hysteresis loss? Can I minimize hysteresis loss? Definitely I can minimize. How I can minimize? By using certain production techniques, manufacturing techniques of the core, where the retentivity of the material is made very low. If the retentivity is low, residual magnetism is low, the loop becomes narrower. Is it? The loop becomes narrower. If the loop is narrow, area is less, hysteresis loss is less. Right? But can I eliminate? I can't eliminate. Because I am using ferromagnetic substance, and ferromagnetic substance has got the property of hysteresis. It will oppose the orientation and reorientation, deorientation and reorientation. So hysteresis loss are bound to occur. Okay. So if you observe half part of the curve, one it is magnetizing, one is demagnetizing. Okay. One is magnetizing, one is demagnetizing. Then there is a logical question coming to a mind of a reader, that if a energy is consumed during magnetization, when it is demagnetizing, why don't that energy is gained? It is exactly opposite process, right? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Magnetization and demagnetization are the exact opposite processes. Now, if energy is consumed during first part of the half cycle, when current is increasing to maximum, then from maximum to zero, when current is decreasing, demagnetization is occurring. Why don't the energy is gained? If this would happen, then hysteresis loss would have become zero, because during positive half cycle, energy is lost. During negative half cycle, during first quarter cycle, energy is lost. Second quarter cycle, energy is gained. Or first quarter cycle, energy is gained. Second quarter cycle, energy is lost. This is what logically a reader will think. I don't know whether you thought or not, but I thought. Okay, because I have to answer that question, right? Why don't it happen? That is the question. It should happen like this, because in a cycle, exact opposite things are happening. In a cycle, exact opposite things are happening. Half of the half of cycle is magnetizing, half of cycle is demagnetizing. So the total magnetizing energy plus demagnetizing energy should get negated and become zero. But why it is not happening? Now I will give that example to understand hysteresis loss. Suppose you people climb up the hill. You need more energy?
Yes, sir.
When you climb down the hill, do you gain energy, or again still you invest energy in climbing down?
Invest energy.
Invest.
Exactly, we are doing opposite process, right? We are climbing up the hill, which I am going against the gravity, right? Now the body mass has to be raised from lower point to the top point of the hill or inclination. Now, when I come down from the top of the hill to the bottom line, still I don't gain any energy. My body has to still spend energy from coming top to bottom. So even when I'm climbing up the hill, body is spending energy. Even when I'm coming down from top to bottom, the body is consuming energy. In both the cases, body is consuming energy. Because in both the cases, body is doing work. Though it appear opposite work, but still it is the work done. In magnetic material also it is the same case. Whether the magnetization is happening or demagnetization is happening. I say demagnetization because my logical mind is telling I am passing the current in opposite direction, therefore the process should happen opposite. But actually what is happening in the magnetic material? I am still magnetizing the core only from one direction to other direction, that's it. So if you see physically, I am not demagnetizing the material, I am still magnetizing the material but in opposite direction. Do you agree?
Yes, sir.
In the process of magnetization, what I call, now I am magnetizing material from right to left, making this left point north pole, right point south pole. Okay, this I call magnetization. The next I call demagnetization. Why I call demagnetization? Because I am doing the opposite process. That is my logical conclusion, what I think. But what is happening in the material? It is still getting magnetized such that this is north and this is south. So there is no change for the material. It is still getting magnetized. So whether I change the direction of current or I keep the direction in the same, keep the current in the same direction, it is always magnetizing the material. Therefore, always the material will consume energy. And this consumption of energy is called hysteresis. And this is called hysteresis loss. So in the process of magnetization and demagnetization, whether I want or I don't want, the molecular magnets are getting oriented and deoriented and reoriented. To orient, deorient and reorient, the material will consume power, it will consume some energy. That energy is known as hysteresis loss. And this hysteresis loss occurs because of irreversibility property of the material. Because the material will oppose to deorient and reorient. In this opposition of orientation and deorientation and reorientation, material will consume some energy. That energy consumption physically is hysteresis loss. Mathematically, it is given by the area of this loop. The area of this loop is hysteresis loss. Is it clear? Now, is it clear what is hysteresis loss?
Yes, sir.
Please go through this lecture once again, thoroughly. Make the points. Write the points where you get the doubt. Come back to me if you are having any doubts. We'll discuss it once again. Or I will make one more parallel video for you in clearing all the doubts and I will forward. But as of now, is it clear what is hysteresis loss?
Yes, sir.
Why I took this point? Yes. Is there anything? Fine. Is it clear as of now whatever is been done?
Yes, sir.
So every time I cannot find hysteresis loss by drawing this loop and taking the area. So there is an empirical formula for the hysteresis loss. Okay. So hysteresis loss, WH is given by a formula which is say some beta, which is material constant, Bm raised to 1.6 F into V watts. So beta is material constant. Bm is magnetic flux density in the core. Maximum flux density in the core. F is frequency. Okay. Then V is volume of the core. Okay. So this is how hysteresis loss is given. Okay. Is it clear? Next is eddy current loss. In 5 minutes, we'll see eddy current loss and we'll stop. Okay? Mechanical losses we will see in the next class. Eddy current losses. Okay? Now take the same magnetic material. Eddy current loss is simple to understand. Nothing is much. Now I have wound it with a coil. When I pass the current and it is alternating, we know that armature current is alternating current in the DC generator or DC motor. Only after commutation we get DC. Inside armature it is AC only. When current I flows, which is alternating, it will create a flux phi. Is it? Which is also alternating. Whatever the nature of current I have, same nature of flux I will get. Okay, so whatever the nature of current I have, same nature of flux I will get. Now there is an alternating flux created surrounding the core and also inside the core, and this flux phi is continuously linking this core. No doubt it is linking winding, it is there, but this flux is also linking this core, and core is a good conductor of electricity. It is an iron part, metal. Okay, core is a good conductor of electricity. So what will happen when alternating flux is linking to the core and EMFs are induced in the core? But these EMFs will not exist. Why they don't exist? Because core is a short circuited path. You see, the surface is short circuited on itself. So the EMFs that are induced because of alternating flux linking to the core will readily make the currents circulate in the core. EMFs exist, short circuited path, the circulating currents will. So these circulating currents are known as eddy currents. Why eddy currents are existing? Because of the flux linking to the core, which is alternating flux linking to the core. Okay, alternating flux linking to the core will create an EMF, will induce an EMF as per Faraday's law, and these EMFs are existing in a short circuited core. Okay, the path is short circuited, so immediately these EMFs induced will start circulating the current on the surface of the core. Start circulating currents on the surface of the core, and these circulating currents are known as eddy currents. And we know that when current flows through the path, it will experience the opposition due to resistance of the path, and it will create a loss. Okay, so eddy currents basically are the resistive losses in the core. I can call this as I eddy square into R core. I square R losses. I square R losses occurring in the core. When eddy currents flow against the core resistance, eddy current losses occur. Now, can I avoid this? First question, I want to eliminate the losses, but can I eliminate it? I can't eliminate it, because if I have to eliminate the eddy current losses, either eddy current should be zero or resistance of the core should be zero. Getting my point? Either eddy current should be zero or resistance of the core should be zero. Okay? If resistance of the core should be zero, then dimension of the core should be zero, because R core is equals to rho L by area of core. Now, if I have to make resistance 0, length and area should be 0. If length and area of the core is 0, do I get the machine? I can't do that, right? So I can't eliminate eddy current losses. I can't make resistance of the core 0. One thing. Second thing, I can't make eddy currents 0 because eddy currents are due to magnetic induction. If eddy currents should not be induced in the core means my flux variation should be 0. If flux variation should be 0 means current variation should be 0. If current variation should be 0 means no current should follow in the winding. If winding don't carry current, then what is the use of the machine? So I can't eliminate eddy currents, but I can minimize. How can I minimize? Instead of making the resistance of the core 0, if I make resistance of the core infinity, then automatically currents become 0. You can say that I square into infinity is infinity. No, that is not the mathematics. We are not dealing with mathematics, we are dealing with physics. If I make the resistance of the core infinite, my eddy currents become 0. No current will flow in infinite path. But physically or practically, I can't make the core resistance infinite, but I can keep it very high. How I can keep it very high? If I want the resistance of the core to be very, very high, then the length of the core should be increased, area of the core should be decreased. But the problem with length and area of the core is the dimension of the core depends upon the output power of the motor. I can't change the output power, therefore I can't change the dimension. So instead of using a solid core, I use laminated core to reduce eddy current losses. We use laminated core. Now, how laminated core reduce eddy current loss? That is the question. How laminated core reduce eddy current loss? Okay. Now, the eddy current losses are given by WE is equals to some eta, material constant again, Bm square, F square, T square into V, watts. Okay, where eta is material constant, Bm is magnetic flux density, maximum flux density, F is frequency, V is volume of the core, T is thickness of the core. T is thickness of the core. Now the eddy current losses are proportional to the square of the thickness. But thickness of the core depends upon the power rating of the machine. When you study design, you will get to know. The volume of the machine is depending upon power rating. I can't change that. But what I can do, instead of using a solid core, I will use a laminated core. Say for example, let the requirement of the core thickness, suppose this is a core, okay. Let the required thickness of the core be 1 centimeter or 10 centimeter. Let the required thickness of the core be 10 centimeter. Then what will happen here is, this here I will use a solid core. Okay, so my eddy current losses with solid core of 10 centimeter thickness. My eddy current losses is proportional to 10 centimeter square. Rest all things will remain constant because volume of the core I can't change. whether you use lamination or don't use lamination. So operating frequency, flux density, material will remain same. So it is proportional to 10 centimeter square. What we will get here is, it is 100 into 10 to the power minus 4. Okay. How much I get? Eddy current loss is proportional to 0.01. It is proportional to 0.01. Let it be. Second case. Laminated core of 1 mm lamination. It is not only laminated, in between two laminations, it is insulated also. Between two laminations, I should insulate. If there is no insulation between two laminations, there is as good as solid core only it is. Laminated core of 1 mm. So how many laminations I need? For 10 mm thick, for 10 centimeter thickness, number of laminations equals to 10 centimeter by 1 millimeter. I think I will get 100 laminations. Is it? Are you getting the things? Are you connected?
Yes.
Okay. So first what I did, I took a core of thickness 10 centimeter. Okay. Now I want the same 10 centimeter thickness core, but instead of using a solid 10 centimeter material, I will make the slice such that each slice is of 1 millimeter, and I will stack 100 such slices to make 10 centimeter thickness. So I will get 100 laminations. 100 laminations. Okay. You can imagine a thickness of book. Thickness of book is formed by thickness of each page. So each page is 1 lamination. To get a sufficient thickness of the book, I will stack such number of pages to get sufficient amount of thickness. So 1 lamination is of 1 mm. Now what is the eddy current loss in 1 lamination? Eddy current loss in 1 lamination is WE proportional to 1 mm square. Roughly, this is a very rough calculation I am telling. Okay. Proportional to 1 mm. How much it is? 1 into 10 to the power minus 6. Is it? Eddy current loss in 1 lamination. In 1 lamination, this is. How many such laminations I have? Total eddy current loss in laminated core of 100 laminations, because I have 100 laminations to form 10 centimeter thickness. Let me take this as WE dash. WE is now proportional to 1 into 10 to the power minus 6. So this is the eddy current loss in 1 lamination. How many laminations I have? 100 laminations. So WE is proportional to 10 to the power minus 4. or WE is proportional to 0.0001. This is the eddy current loss proportional to 0.0001 in a laminated core of the same thickness 10 centimeter. When I use a solid core of 10 centimeter, eddy current loss is proportional to 0.01. Okay. WE solid. Let me take this as WE solid. Let me take this as WE laminated. Now, what is the amount of eddy current loss reduction? So WE solid divided by WE laminated equals to, this is 0.01 divided by 0.0001. How many times? 100 times. Is it 100?
Yes.
So what does it mean? WE solid is equals to 100 into WE laminated, or WE laminated is equals to 1 over 100 times WE solid. So for the same thickness of 10 centimeter core, keeping all dimensions and other quantities constant, just by laminating it, I am reducing eddy current losses by 100 times. If I don't use laminated core in any machine, the machine will not last for few hours also. You forget about few years. Now, all of us, we know transformers that we use for years together for its operation. Instead of using laminated core, if I use a solid core of transformer, a transformer that will operate for 10 years at a stretch will not operate for 10 hours also at a stretch. Such amount of huge eddy current losses will occur in the core that the core will melt. To that extent, temperature rise will occur. So the laminated core is the only solution to reduce eddy current losses. So however small electromagnet, however large electromagnet, all the cores are laminated. Even if you take a small 50 rupees DC motor, toy DC motor, 3 volt DC motor, you just take out the armature and see that armature, which is of diameter hardly some around 6 to 7 centimeters, sorry, 6 to 7 millimeters, is also laminated in its core. Okay, so wherever I am forming the core of an electromagnet, it is always laminated to reduce eddy current losses. Is it clear? So how eddy current losses occur? Eddy current losses occur because of the alternating flux linking to the core. EMFs are induced in the core, and since the core is short circuited path, the currents are circulating in the core, and those currents are known as eddy currents, and these eddy currents will create losses because of the core resistance. So by increasing the core resistance, now when I use lamination, what did I do there? When I laminated the core, what I have done, I have increased the resistance of this core to very high value. Length of core is same, it won't change. What about area of core? What was the area of core? Suppose this is 1 centimeter by 10 centimeter. So what is the area now? Area of core is, what is the cross section area of core now here? 10 centimeter into 1 centimeter. Okay, it is 10 centimeter square. Now when I created a lamination, now I have created a lamination, okay, which is 1 centimeter by 1 millimeter. What is the thickness of lamination now? It is 1 millimeter. Now what is the area? 1 millimeter by 1 centimeter. It was 10 centimeter square. It is 1 millimeter into 1 centimeter. The area has decreased now. When the area has decreased, my resistance has increased. So with the increase in resistance, there is a decrease in eddy current. See, this calculation, what I have shown, it is only with respect to thickness I have shown. We haven't yet calculated the reduction in the eddy current. Eddy current reduces to a very low value when I use lamination. So furthermore, the eddy current losses are reduced more than 100 times. Only with the thickness, the eddy currents are reduced by 100 times. There is a reduction in the current also. When current is reduced by twice, the eddy currents are reduced by 4 times because it is I square. It is I square R. Eddy currents square. If current is reduced by half, eddy currents are reduced by 4 times. So there is reduction in the eddy current because of the dimension of the core. There is a reduction in the eddy current because of the reduction in the current. So combinedly, there is a reduced eddy currents furthermore when I use the laminations. So this is the importance of using laminations in the core. Is it clear? Are eddy current and hysteresis loss clear? Okay. Yeah. So we'll stop here because beyond this, I think already you people are saturated. I could understand, but because I did not want to break the flow of these two losses. So I continued. Okay. I know that after 45 minutes, it is difficult to concentrate in physical class. This is an online class. It is furthermore difficult to concentrate after just half an hour also. Okay. But this was an important topic which is necessary to you throughout your electrical career. Okay, that is the reason why I took these things in detail. This already you might have studied in transformers because there also you got eddy current and hysteresis loss. You calculated in OC and AC tests. Okay, but still for my satisfaction, I wanted to discuss these losses in detail so that never again you should be thinking twice what are eddy current and hysteresis loss. You feel you have understood everything by listening to the lecture, but after some time you will forget it. My suggestion is at least some 3 to 5 times you go through this lecture in a week. Not today only, after the test you can do that. In a week, not every week, in the first week. At least some 3 to 5 times you repeat this lecture. Though you have understood, repeat this lecture for 3 to 5 times. So that the concept of eddy current and hysteresis loss will be always forever are nailed in your mind. Because these are very important for any analysis or design of machine. Okay. So any doubts so far?
No, sir.
So we'll stop the class now. We'll end the session now.